Hey YouTube, I hope you're having a great day, and I got another story for you. If you do enjoy these stories, please like, subscribe, ring that bell. In any case, this is a little bit I guess, earlier childhood reminiscing, and this isn't so much of a drug story, just kind of a notable thing in my in my life in middle school. So this is the time I got stabbed by a tree, and this isn't just some ordinary like poke. This was like hollow point bullet shot, like blowing apart chunks of fat and just basically being able to see my bone. So it was kind of winter, yeah, basically like, kind of like towards the middle of winter, snow on the ground, that sort of thing. And I used to go to Colorado Springs School, this like private school in the Broadmoor area that's like, I don't know. It's like it's an okay school, but it's whatever. It's not that great for for the cost. But basically in sort of the recess area that they had us before they had us do this weird run to the cafeteria for lunch. Basically me and my buddy were hanging out. There's this kind of like forested area between like the playground basketball area, and this and the sort of like the bridge that leads to the bridge, but like basically there's the separation of trees between the actual like the playground recess area and the rest of the school, the cafeteria area and everything. And my buddy and I were in this kind of like, it's kind of on an incline, and there were all these, all these trees around, and with the snow on this incline, my buddy and I, we were just kind of like just having fun sliding down on our shoes on on the snow there. And it was getting close to lunch, and people were starting to kind of linger towards that the area where we would all gather up. And so he kind of like zoomed off, went. Thing is, I kind of tried to do the same, sliding down the snow, and lo and behold, my foot got caught. I flew forward, and I hit the ground, and it feels just like I scraped my leg. Like I don't really think anything of it. I thought I was just gonna brush it off and whatnot. And I kind of, roll over, about to get up. I look at my leg and I see like, oh, shoot, it's my pants are torn, dang. But then I see a little bit of blood and I'm like, okay. I then like, basically like pull apart just kind of where the cloth is, and I see like my leg is open, and not just like a little hole. It's like this fat, just giant gash, like blood pouring everywhere. All of a sudden I noticed like the fat chunks, the chunks of fat that were in my leg were spread across, like kind of like there were like little beads of fat, just like kind of all over my leg, and like in the ground, like where the this thick root was just sticking straight up off the ground. Like it was just like basically it went all the way to the bone. Like there was so much blood, it was really, you couldn't see it at the time, but it went all the way to the bone, and it went like in this cone shape outward from where the bone was. And I just started screaming, freaking out. Like it didn't feel at the time like crazy painful for what it looked like, but it certainly freaked me out for sure, seeing the inside of my leg like that. And I was screaming, and the kids were like less than 50 feet away, and I'm like yelling at the top of my lungs. Nobody's paying attention, not even the teachers. Nobody's gonna care in the world that someone is screaming bloody murder not 50 feet away. And it wasn't until like my buddy noticed turning around when I screamed, like he was the one person that saw. He walked over and was like, there's a kid dying over there. That's a distinct memory I have. Like it was like my savior moment. Like, thank you for letting them know. 'Cause like if no one said anything, I probably would have laid there for quite a bit longer without anybody noticing, because just nobody seemed to give a shit. But But he was like, hey, there's a kid dying over there. And just the entire middle school class just looks over at me and is like, what? The teachers come over and they're like, oh, shit. And so what do? Don't call an ambulance. They carry me to the cafeteria and sit me down. And I'm just like, freaking out, crying myself. But another kid straight up passed out because it was just so gory the way it was. And I had to lay there. They gauzed it up, they covered it up, they're trying to control the blood and whatnot. And instead they call my mom to come, and she just freaking out and was like, why didn't you call an ambulance? And I'll get to that later. But basically she shows up probably like, I've had this gash in here for an hour and a half, 2 hours. She comes, picks me up. We go to Memorial Hospital, and it took another probably like half hour, 45 minutes to even get into the patient area where I'll get stitched up. And basically what they had to do for the anesthesia, they had to shoot it directly inside of the gash openly, like me seeing it happen. And strangely enough, it wasn't like the poking in was the thing. It was them putting the anesthesia in that was just the worst. It was worse than getting the stitches themselves. It felt like they were injecting fire. Like I was just getting stung by a million bees in my skin, and I would just feel this burning sensation like throughout my leg there, and just it was this unbearable, kind of scary feeling. Like I hadn't felt pain quite like that before. I mean, I've felt, there's definitely some, I've taken some spills and whatnot, but this one was just notably had a certain kind of pain to it that was, and they had to put, I think it was being like 3 syringes of anesthesia in, and every time felt just as bad as the next. I was just always glad when they were done, because it was just so unbearably painful to put anesthesia in, and that the guy was being a dick about it the whole time. The guy that sewed me up was a bit of an asshole. He got really fed up with me. He just had zero tolerance for any of my worries or just, freaking out. It was to the point where like the anesthesia was wearing off again towards the end, and I just said, fuck it, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want them injecting that in me. I'm just going to deal with the pricks. The last, I think it was the last 15 stitches, it was like kicking back in. So I just was like, I'll just deal with these little pricks, because I ain't dealing with this asshole getting all snooty and whatnot about me freaking out with the anesthesia. And he was just in this pissy mood while stitching me up, and it was like not a great feeling having this like guy who was frustrated at me stitching me up. And so they had to do 2 layers of stitches, 50 stitches in total. It was I think it was like 25 below, 25 on the surface. And it was quite, I think I ended up spending I think it was 3 hours getting these stitches, something like 3-4 hours just laying in bed getting these stitches. It was, well, I don't know about 3-4 hours, that might be exaggerating, but a long time. It felt like forever. And it just, I was so glad to be done. And once I got stitched back up, I basically got a couple days off, and ended up getting there was some pain pills they got. I think it was some Vicodin, which apparently my mom wigged out because the person at the Walgreens or whatever gave me a much higher dose than I should have. Lo and behold, that bottle just kind of miraculously disappeared somehow. I don't know. I didn't actually take any. I didn't want to take any at the time. I don't know. It didn't really hurt that much, so I didn't feel the need to do it. I really wasn't into... I'm not really in, I don't know. Opioids are one of those things for me. I've kind of experimented here and there, but it's it's never really been my bag per se. But at the time, I just wasn't, I had never really wasn't into drugs yet, and I just wasn't even on my mind as far as getting high. I just didn't want to, I just didn't even want it. But they somehow just, miraculously just kind of disappeared there. And thing is, I probably could have used one when I was getting those stitches taken out, because a couple weeks later, again, those top layer stitches out, bottom ones dissolved, but those top ones had to get taken out. And my sister, she was the one to unclip it, help, pull those pieces out. Lo and behold, the guy that sewed me up decided to put 2 fat knots in the freaking stitches. So my sister had to pull these like fat knots through the holes. And that was quite a painful experience to deal with. And it felt like a really dick move, because it wasn't like he was tying anything together. It was like he purposefully did that to be a dick to me. That was a great feeling, knowing the quality of work that Memorial Hospital in Colorado Springs does. It was great to know. I never wanted to go back again, because I knew what kind of care I would get. So, yeah, that was no fun getting those stitches out. But after that, I mean, it basically have this fat upside down V scar on my leg still to this day. And there's like a chunk of my leg that is completely numb now. Well, I don't know about completely numb, but like it's still basically there's a square of my leg that's now numb now. Basically because of the amount of time it took for me to get that medical treatment. Thing about that ambulance, apparently the reason why they didn't call an ambulance is because for them to call an ambulance, my mom had to sign a waiver for them to call an ambulance, apparently, for a medical emergency. I'm guessing because of the medical cost. Now, thinking back on it now, it's like she was freaking out about it at the time. But my guess is, when she was going through all the documentation to sign everything, she probably looked at that and was like, if anything happens, probably don't want to pay a fat bill for the ambulance ride. I'll just, I don't know if she, maybe she was thinking that at the time, like, what could happen? This is not going to happen. I'm just going to leave it as is. Because I don't know. I can't imagine any other scenario than just thinking like, I don't want to pay a $900 bill in reality. Because there's no way that was a form that wouldn't have, passed her by, filing everything for school. So it's whatever. I was just glad to get that medical help and get my leg put back together. So yeah. That does it. That's the time I got stabbed by a tree. In case, if you do like these stories, please like, subscribe, ring that bell. You have a great rest of your day.